Welcome back to another episode of the Chicagolandians, a casual sports podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Cunningham, joined as always by my co-host, Connor Cunningham.
We're two brothers from the Chicagoland area who love exploring every corner of the sports world. Each week, we break down sports stories, ideas, and theories in a way that's simple and fun.
Whether you're a lifelong fan or just curious about the game, there's something here for everyone.
Welcome back to another episode of the Chicagolandians podcast. I am your host, Connor Cunningham, joined as always by my co-host, Patrick Cunningham.
Hello, hello, hello.
Today, I am also joined by friends, brothers, frequent contributors, and esteemed colleagues of the podcast, Mike and John Cunningham. Guys, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us. I was really on the edge of my seat with what that last descriptor was going to be. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having us. My day's gone from okay to very good, and maybe we'll find out why shortly.
Yeah, well, we're probably not going to talk about the inauguration if that's what you're talking about. That made it go well, but
I'm in DC right now. So I don't know if you can hear a lot of background noise in my audio, but I tried to find a quiet corner of the National Mall, I guess.
Yeah, but we'll get into it later. But an exciting day for Chicago sports. This seems like a turning point in the franchise. How many times have you heard that before? Heard Bird fans say that before. But this time it's different. We'll get into it. But we're going to start off with some Chicago sports news. To start, Illinois basketball. The Illini defeated the Indiana Hoosiers 94-69 in their own arena. Dominating win. Fun to see Luke Goody playing for Indiana, making more NIL money. Good for him. Most recently, the Illini did lose to Michigan State at Michigan State. Kasparis fouled out after scoring 3 points. He got into foul trouble right away in the game. I think he picked up 2 early fouls and sat for 14 minutes maybe in the first half, and then dealt with foul trouble the rest of the game. So that was unfortunate, losing your best player like that. But Will Riley had 19 points, which is exciting. Will Riley, our young, highly recruited freshman. But a tough loss. Michigan State was the 12 at the time. Now they're ranked to 8th. Playing on the road in the Big Ten is always tough, but I think Illinois is a team that could beat Michigan State down the road. Doesn't change any long-term projections on the team. Guys, you got any thoughts on that?
I was really amped to see us beat Indiana like that. I feel like oftentimes we don't play them very well, and then you have to deal with, or I have to deal with coworkers who are Indiana fans and talking trash. So I was glad to see us, just take it to them. I would say a positive out of the Michigan State game is, like you said, seeing Will Riley starting to contribute. Hopefully this can kind of spark something in him, because hasn't done a whole lot of much so far this season. After the opening game, I think he had 30 points. He hasn't done anything. So hopefully this will kind of jumpstart him.
Yeah, you're so right about Indiana, especially with the Trace Jackson Davis days. I feel like he would always just dominate Illinois, could never get past him. Bulls currently on a 5-game losing streak. Most recently lost to the Portland Trailblazers 113-102. Blazers are currently 13th in the West, so things are not looking up right now for the Chicago Bulls. I think that'll be a trend for the rest of the season. I still doubt that this 5-game losing streak will put us in the initial driver's seat for Cooper Flagg, but times are tough right now for the Bulls. In Blackhawks news, we have snapped a 4-game losing streak by defeating the Las Vegas Golden Knights 5-3. So a thorn might be the Bulls, the flower might be the Blackhawks. Maybe this will spur up a deep playoff run for Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. I guess that remains to be seen.
How is it that the Bulls are in the Eastern Conference and the Blackhawks are in the Western Conference? Isn't that weird?
I guess when they formed conferences, there were no teams on the western part of the United States. So they're like, Illinois, that's so far west.
That's what I can contribute to the Bulls-Hawks conversation right now. So sprinkle that in somewhere, yeah.
So dark times as always for the Bulls and the Blackhawks. Jerry, you should sell the team. Moving on to our favorite rising section on the podcast, we have the review section. So we're going to be the review of the week. This one is titled The Last Sports Podcast You'll Ever Need, coming from Bears Superfan 334. That implies that there were 333 Bears Superfans beforehand. The review reads, "Move over, Joe Rogan. There is a new face of podcasting. Or should I say, a pair of faces."
Wow.
Pardon my take. What? Pat McAfee? Who? Every week, I am blown away by the way the Chicagolandians can take a sports topic and break it down in simple but entertaining ways. Wow, this guy really gets the MO of the pod. Their Wilt Chamberlain episode alone inspired me to buy some Chuck Taylors and outfit my bedroom with a waterbed. Keep up the good work. He did not mention any fur or mirrors in the bed, but I'm sure he did that as well. That's, awesome review. Glad to see the fans really getting excited about the pod. If you want to have your review featured in this segment, feel free to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you consume podcasts. But thank you again, Bears Superfan 334, for the review. Pat, any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's just pretty exciting. 2 weeks in a row, we get such glowing reviews like this. It just makes you think that the podcast is heading in the right direction. I mean, you're just giving the people what they want. To say breaking down a sports topic in such simple but entertaining ways, that is, I mean, if you want a tagline for the podcast, that is it. So it's glad to see that message is being conveyed to our viewers.
It's interesting also, he referenced the most recent episode. Do you think this guy's a new listener? Do you think maybe he just jumped on for last week's episode and he's already so psyched that he had to pen this missive to you guys?
Probably put Wilt Chamberlain into his search bar in Apple Podcasts, and I'm sure Chicagolandians was first that popped up, and that's why he
shot right to the top of that list.
I think he looked up probably sports, and then just this came up, and he saw it. And he just put it in his ear holes.
Wow. I mean, congratulations, guys.
Thank you again, Bears Superfan 334, for the review.
What was the name of the reviewer last week? What was that guy's name?
Off the top of my head, I think it was not _Connor_Cunningham, but I might be getting confused right now.
Well, because it was not you, Connor Cunningham, right?
I was a super fan of you, though.
Right.
Well, the username wasn't Connor Cunningham. It was not Connor
It
Cunningham.
was not Connor Cunningham.
So we can at least eliminate that as a possible person.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got to figure out how we get the Bears super fans 1 through 333 dialed into the podcast.
You guys are computer science majors. You can do some hacking, figure that out, right?
I think there's a lot of firewalls that we'd have to kind of enhance and examine.
All right, we'll give you a week to figure it out.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's going to close that section for the day. We're going to move into the meat and potatoes of the episode. So initially, Pat and I were wasting the day away, working hard on our outline, getting together a nice doc to talk about the Chicago Bears head coaching search. We had compiled a page for each of the 17 candidates that we were talking about. Really a lot of work, and we were excited to talk about. And I'm really going to break down Drew Petzing and the intricacies of the Mike Kafka offense, but we had to scrap all of that because minutes before we hit the record button, the Bears hired Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. Guys, how do you feel? Just initial reactions.
Stunned.
Freaking psyched. I'm psyched. I was driving in my car, and it was actually dangerous for a split second because I almost drove off the road. I was so excited. But after I regained my composure and put 2 hands on the wheel, I realized this is a good day for Chicago Bears.
A fantastic day. We'll get into the quick reactions later, but just high level, there was a lot of smoke around Ben Johnson for probably the past week. A lot of Raiders smoke coming out about his connection to Tom Brady, possibly being swayed solely by, maybe Mark Davis or maybe just the involvement of Tom Brady. They had the alignment with the GMs that maybe the Bears or the Jaguars were lacking. So there's a lot of smoke that Ben Johnson might look away from Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams, instead go to the Raiders. He was only considering 3 teams, the Jaguars, Raiders, and Bears. And after the Lions' playoff loss, the Bears acted quickly, signing him 2 days after. If you're unfamiliar, Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. There's still speculation about how the rest of the coaching staff is going to shake out, but early Adam Schefter reports is reporting that Dennis Allen, who is the very failed head coach of the New Orleans Saints, but a good defensive coordinator, might be the Bears defensive coordinator, and then Hank Fraley, the line coach for the Detroit Lions, rumored to be the offensive coordinator. But, overall, a very exciting time. This is the guy that we all wanted for the Chicago Bears, and we finally made it happen. I've spent the whole season questioning my life as a Bears fan. When we did that deep dive into coaching and the McCaskies, talking about why the Bears suck, it felt like this was just a never-ending cycle. The incompetencies of George McCaskey and Ted Phillips and everybody in this organization. Seeing the 17 coaches that we were interviewing, all the bozos, you thought that we weren't going to get it right. At least on paper, it seems like we got it right.
I would just like to say real quick, Chicagolandians, in that episode, we made a point to say, despite what a lot of people were saying, there's no way the Bears are going to get Ben Johnson because we don't want to pay him probably over $10 million. But we said we think recent activity has proven that the McCaskies are willing to spend a lot of money and are not necessarily cheap, instead are more just very poor decision makers. So, hey, good to see we actually shelled out for this guy, and it seems like times are changing for the Bears.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around this. Honestly, since Mike McCarthy was fired by the Cowboys and had been cleared to interview with the Bears, I had been Stockholm Syndrome style getting used to the idea of Mike McCarthy being our head coach. I was like, this is what's going to happen. He seems like a safe pick. He's won in the regular season. He has a Super Bowl ring. He would probably be a big fan favorite in Chicago. This is just what is going to happen. So to see that we actually got the guy, I mean, honestly, this feels like when we drafted Caleb Williams, where it's like,
exactly.
How are we going to screw this up? What guy are we going to try to outsmart everyone by getting? To see this actually happen is staggering. I'm at a loss. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, super exciting. Glad to see the Bears acting decisively, getting right to it. You know, after the loss, I think Schefter had tweeted out that we're probably going to see all of the vacancies filled within this week now. And that really scared me because that deadline made me think the Bears are going to miss out. We're going to get stuck with freaking Drew Pretzel or whatever his name is.
Drew Pretzel, thank you, yeah.
And very exciting to see Bears had their guy. Even though there was this whole carousel going on, kind of making us look like a joke, we actually had our guy at heart. Was just waiting for that Lions loss to come so that they could actually make it official, and then jumped on it right away. Really exciting to see. I don't know if that's the influence of Kevin Warren or who, but just really excited.
And there was a seeming stroke of competence from Bears brass with the game ending, and then on Sunday, the Bears interviewing Eddie George from Tennessee State. A lot of people think that interview was to qualify for the Rooney Rule, which is another topic entirely. But by getting that interview done as soon as possible, come Monday, the Bears were eligible to interview whoever they wanted as quickly as possible. So it's very interesting to see the people in charge of the Bears kind of being in the know of the league and setting themselves up to act quickly and efficiently. And that's something that we haven't said a lot in the past couple of years for the Bears. So I think overall, it was really nice to see the Bears act quickly and decisively, especially looking like the complete opposite throughout this entire head coaching search.
What do you think that Eddie George interview looked like? If it was such a means to getting Ben Johnson, I can't imagine it was too, I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a big complaint about the whole rule right now. I think, especially with the Patriots too, kind of seeming like
yeah, it's just a box to check before you can make your hire, which is unfortunate. But I also did hear on the radio that I think him and Kevin Warren have a pretty good relationship just with their time involvement in the Big Ten. I think Eddie had done stuff with the Big Ten Network, and that maybe it was just the Bears, one, satisfying the Rooney Rule, but then two, kind of helping out Eddie George just to get his name into the NFL interview circles is always going to be a good thing. So hopefully that means, who knows, in a couple more coaching cycles, he can get an opportunity to, be an OC or something like that.
So looking at some basic numbers, comparing and contrasting the Bears offense, which from a high level was very poor. The Lions offense from a high level was very good. The Lions were second in total yards per game, second in passing yards per game, sixth in rushing, first in points per game, fourth in passing touchdowns, third in rushing touchdowns, and first in total touchdowns. A common trend is the Bears were bottom half of the league or bottom of the league in the majority of those offensive stats. So if your main concern with the Chicago Bears was the offense, this hiring is the most obvious remedy that you could have for fixing the offense. Ben Johnson is a well-respected offensive mind, the hottest candidate that was out there. A lot of comparisons to when Kyle Shanahan was a head coaching candidate coming out of the Falcons. So at least with the information that we have now, he seems like the guy that we had to hire in order to put the Bears on a path for success, especially with Caleb Williams and the state of the offense right now. So a little bit about what Ben Johnson does well. If you just watch the Lions, it seems like their offense operates differently. A lot of it comes down to pre-snap motion. This has become common with most successful offenses in the league. Pre-snap motion is extremely common for identifying coverages and schemes that the defense is in. So Ben Johnson and the Lions were one of the most frequent teams to use pre-snap motion, and they also have a really good ability to utilize the players that they have on their roster, most notably with Jameson Williams, who in past seasons hasn't had a lot of success, but this year I feel like he really was able to shine in the Ben Johnson scheme, really utilizing his talents as a speedster, and then also making Jared Goff look like an incredibly elite quarterback. Jared Goff is obviously a great quarterback, but there are limitations to Jared Goff, so I feel like he's a guy who can really maximize the talent that he has. It's exciting, and I think the main question that remains with Ben Johnson is his ability to be a head coach, right? There's plenty of people in the league who are great coordinators and maybe can't work out as head coaches, but at this point, there's nothing to scare me away from his abilities to lead. I don't think there's been a lot come out that would make me feel negative, and there's no way that I would pass up on him with concerns of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's nothing coming out around the league raising any red flags. That just reminds me of when Caleb was on the St. Browns podcast. And I was really talking about Ben Johnson, saying what a great coordinator he is, what a great coach he is. And that just brings me back to when last offseason, when we just hired Waldron and the Seahawks receiver
Jackson Smith and Jigba, yeah.
couldn't even put into words the amount that he disliked Shane Waldron. So to hear that coming from his players is encouraging from the get-go.
I think this is the first time I'm actually looking at the end of season stat comparisons for the NFL and seeing how pathetic the Bears' offensive production has been. The Detroit Lions had 2,000 more yards than the Bears. They averaged 15 points a game more than the Bears. Yeah, the Bears averaged 18.2 points a game. The Lions, 33.2. Over
That
2
is
touchdowns a
crazy.
game. Like, I did not realize that the Bears' offensive production was this stinky. I guess in the last 5 games, it was a real dumpster fire. But holy cow, very excited to see what he can do with, I mean, you can only go up from there, right? Probably can't get any worse than 18 points a game.
Connor, you also made a good point about Goff being in other systems. Goff was in McVay's system. McVay is also known as one of the best offensive coaches in the league. But Goff was not playing. He did not play the same way he played under Ben Johnson. It still took Ben Johnson's ability and, theory and strategy around the offensive side of the ball to really unlock him. So hopefully he's able to do the same with Caleb.
Yeah, Jared Goff threw for almost 4,700 yards this year and almost 40 touchdowns. A incredible season from Jared Goff, who he's a good player, but I don't know if he's a consistent 4,700 on any other team. The Lions are a team that relies heavily on the offensive line and their run play. If they could, they would run the ball every single play with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. There were games where Jared Goff would have under 20 pass attempts the whole game, and they would win by 40 points. So I think with Ben Johnson coming in, while he's this great offensive mind, I still think he's a guy who's going to be very concerned about building the offensive line. Ben Johnson's a guy who would really want to do that.
Yeah, this just seems like the first step in the whole process, at least to bring him and be like, these are all the places where we stink, and here's what we need to do to make these things better. Yeah, what's his name? Jahmyr Gibbs ran for like 1,400 yards on 15 rush attempts a game this season.
He was absurd.
His efficiency is absolutely insane. So like 10 yards a carry is freaking nuts.
Yeah. Gibbs was awesome, and they really had that thunder and lightning kind of with David Montgomery.
Oh
and
boy,
Gibbs.
David Montgomery. Yeah.
Yeah.
What could have been?
man.
What could have been? Yeah, this year you really saw what happens when a team doesn't have like a big, I guess Roshan, well, that doesn't count. Like when you've got a one-dimensional running game and that one dimension is side to side, how ineffective of a running game it can really be.
I think Swiss' visor was too dark. I think he couldn't see the holes with his visor.
His
I think
vision
that's
was
the problem.
terrible. He was just blocked out.
Yeah, he couldn't
didn't wanna
see the
tell anyone.
shadow and the openings to kind of sneak through there. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
I mean, the games that I feel like our offense was most successful was when we stuck with the run and actually we were able to establish a run game. And obviously that's simple, right? Like if the running game's, actually producing, that's going to open up the passing game. That really helped Caleb out when we were able to establish the run. And it seemed like whenever we weren't able to establish it early, Waldron or Thomas Brown or whoever the jokester who was calling our plays would quickly abandon it because it's not working and just make Caleb throw it 50 times a game. So Ben Johnson has shown that he is willing to stick to the run, willing to rely on the run to drive his high-scoring offense. So that's encouraging to see, and I think will help Caleb out a lot.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how when Eberflus was fired, legitimate reports came out about how interested Ben Johnson was in the job last year and did not choose to become a head coach because he wasn't offered the Bears spot, and how, Poles stuck with Matt Eberflus. All of us were just thinking, oh my God, what catastrophic mistake have we made that we're going to miss out on Ben Johnson, or we could have had this guy. And now for us to still get that guy is exciting. It's nice to see Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren right the ship here. I think it also speaks a little bit to the shift in ownership structure and decision making. I don't feel like there was anything that was noted about too many outside voices being used for leading this head coaching decision. And I think that was primarily because of Kevin Warren. I think Kevin Warren bridged a lot of those gaps for the McCaskies in having somebody to trust that wasn't just giving Ryan Poles the keys to everything. But it was just so refreshing to see the Bears not bringing in Bill Polian or somebody from the outside to lead this head coaching search. And it seems like there's a shift now where the decision makers within the Bears are more centralized. So I think that's another thing that's at least exciting as Bears fans.
At the same time, I'd been hearing these rumblings about the people who were going to be in all of these interviews, though, of saying that they weren't only going to be meeting with football personnel, but also business personnel. Like Kevin Warren would have his vast array of like vice presidents and upper executives also interviewing these people.
Okay. I don't know.
I don't know if any of that actually happened. I mean, I was getting ready for just a repeat of the last 2 or 3 coaching cycles, hearing like how many people were going to be involved in these interviews. But I haven't been able to find anything about how these actual interviews went or who was involved. But maybe it was just the case that Warren got everybody out of the way so that Poles could just make this decision on his own. I don't know. I mean, it opens up so many other questions for me. Why, if this was the guy that we wanted and we were going to be so decisive about it, why the heck did we interview? You had 20 people on your coaching search. Why do we interview 20 people? Why do we interview Pretzel? Why do we interview the guy from the Giants? Why do we interview all of these people? Is this 3D chess? Is this smoke and mirrors? Is this us saying this search we're going to be as thorough and as vast and as world spanning as possible and still hire the one guy that everyone hoped that we would hire? Why do all of this stuff?
I guess it was tough because probably our top candidates were in playoff teams. Like Vrabel was the first candidate that we interviewed, and he was probably our top candidate. So, I guess we acted somewhat fast with that guy. So maybe it was because Johnson wasn't available. But I mean, I agree. Like, why did we interview all these bozos? I feel like it didn't make a lot of sense.
And furthered by him allegedly wanting to coach for the Bears. That's like in grade school where you're like, I know Denise likes me. I've heard from her friend, and she knows that I like her. Just make the thing happen. You don't go around interviewing 7 other potential dating candidates to come back to her.
That makes Denise want you more, though.
Oh, that's true.
Why the fuck is John talking to Drew Petzing? I'm way better than Drew Petzing.
His head is so big. Do you really think Vrabel was our top candidate? That would have...
No. I mean, I feel like... No, I guess I don't know. But I feel like he probably had to have been like one of our top candidates.
I think he was probably the number 2 behind Johnson.
Yeah, probably.
Or if not tied. Yeah.
He's a linebacker, though. So then we're stuck in the same stupid position that we're always stuck in, where we don't have an offensive-minded
But he's the big
coach.
culture guy. He's the Ditka that would fix the mess that Eberflus and all of these other
Ditko was a
weenies
tight end
have
at least.
left.
He was at least an offensive guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the big thing with Johnson is obviously how explosive his offense is and then the weapons he has on offense. A big thing you see on Twitter is with Ben Johnson, the potential of him coming to the Bears. Would he want us to take somebody like Ashton Jeanty in the first round? Similar to how the Lions in their early first rounds for the past couple of years have been prioritizing offensive weapons instead of the safe pick like an edge rusher or offensive lineman to really build these pieces to fit his offense. What would you guys think of getting Jeanty?
I mean, that makes sense, but I will say they used their first round pick a couple years ago on Penei Sewell as the number 5 pick. So I would say had already established their line by the time they drafted Gibbs. So I think that's what influenced that pick. While Jeanty is obviously incredible and could help our offense, we need to draft a lineman. If we don't draft a lineman, I will be very upset. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do, but I'd be very upset.
I hope, as per what I said earlier, that him coming to the team would be able to help further identify the massive holes that we have in our team. And if he's so dedicated to the run, he would know that we can't run with our offensive line. Do you think he will be able to fall to like the second round or somewhere we can kind of sneak him up somewhere?
Maybe we could leak a story. Luckily, we've got a journalist, sports journalist on our staff here. We leaked
That's actually a good
a
point.
report that he's done something
His love for football
not
isn't there.
terrible. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I like that. Maybe he doesn't have the passion. Don't want him to like get in big trouble, but just drop out of the first round.
Just a little bit
Just
of
like a
trouble.
little bit. Yeah, passion, that's a good one.
I don't know. I agree. I think I agree most with Mike's point, though. I think that at that point they had a very good offensive line, and they knew that they needed the weapons. I would hope that Ben Johnson would have the clarity to see the problem with the Chicago Bears doesn't start with the running back room. It is a problem, but that's not the main problem that we have. And I still think whether it's through free agency or the draft, something needs to be done about the offensive line. There are some quality linemen in the draft and also through free agency. Kevin Zeitler, who is a current guard for the Detroit Lions, is set to be a free agent. He was PFS number 5 offensive guard. And if we end up hiring Fally from the Lions, I think that would make a lot of sense. But there are some other good free agents who are going to be available. Ronnie Stanley from the Ravens, as well as Trey Smith from the Chiefs, and Zach Martin from the Cowboys, Mekhi Becton as well. You know, we're probably going to need to find a replacement for Braxton Jones, but definitely a big problem is the offensive guard position, especially if Tevin Jenkins leaves. But
Are you saying if we don't re-sign Tevin Jenkins, is his contract up?
I honestly don't think Jenkins is going to come back.
He himself put it at 50-50 in an interview.
I think he sees his value much higher than the Bears do. Like, he's obviously a good player when he's playing, but he plays 50% of the time, 50-50.
Yeah.
So it's just not worth giving him a long-term extension.
What a joke. Yeah, he finds a new way to get injured every game.
Yeah. So I feel like what sticks out to me about the Lions is they have one primary receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a great elite tight end in Sam Laporta. They have a speedster in Jamison Williams, and then a incredible offensive line, a quarterback who can just get the play done and is consistent, and then 2 stellar running backs. So thinking about how the Bears compare, I think we're missing the offensive line for sure.
Barely.
I think we probably have comparable receiver talent, tight ends. I think Laporta is probably a better pass catcher than Cole Kmet, but I don't think the gap is too crazy there. And then the running back room obviously doesn't compare as well, but I think the biggest thing is going to be the line. But I think I would be scared if we invest heavily again in the offensive or in the running back position. That would make me unwell.
I agree. And I think what Johnson has shown to do is his ability to build the offense around what he has. When he drafted Gibbs, now suddenly he has all these plays to get Gibbs, who's a way different running back than the traditional running back, use him effectively. And I think he will be more malleable in his offense compared to like Waldron, who tried to force the Caleb Williams peg into the Waldron offense. So I think hopefully he won't be as strict about roster construction.
So you think he's enough of a wizard to work with whatever tools he has, as opposed to the last series of OCs that we've had who have some designated strategy that they want to implement come hell or high water? Okay.
Exactly.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. So I feel like a common theme was that Ben Johnson didn't want to go to a spot where there was questions around the GM position. So with the hiring of Ben Johnson, do you think that implies that Ryan Poles has under the table received a large extension, or do you still think he still has like a year left on his contract? What do you think his situation would be?
I think he hasn't been re-signed. I think that they'll play out this season and see how it goes. And hopefully it goes well and they re-sign him. But I don't think he's been re-signed. Do you?
That's a good point. And I know we had talked about this a couple weeks ago, but like that was a big point that he had made during press conferences talking about teams that he would be interested in is like alignment between management, upper management, the GM, him. So to think that he's signed with the Bears so quickly after their season has ended, and then for Poles' job to still be up in the air after next year makes you think, I don't know. Maybe he has been signed. I think this offseason will tell a lot about how I feel about Ryan Poles.
Yeah.
Coming into the season, I loved what he had done to the team. And then this season made it apparent as to what he has not addressed and what he needs to do. So if he's able to do that this offseason, great. And I would love him to be the GM for another 5 years. But if he doesn't, do a good job rebuilding the trenches on both sides, that will be very different. But I think there is a chance that he did get re-signed and we just haven't heard about it. And I hate that about sports, is that you don't know like what the coach's contract is. You don't know what the GM's contract is, like you do for players. But I think there's a good chance that he has some sort of agreement to continue on past this year.
That would be nuts. He has not earned a new contract in any way. This season was an absolute disaster. I feel like his grade is like a C, an overall general manager. You don't renew a C contract.
Yeah, I mean, Warren himself, when asked about it, he said a year from now is an eternity and a lot can change.
A damning line.
Yeah. And I guess if you keep him on for a year but then fire him, I think maybe it's better to get the GM and the coach aligned after 1 year. That's fine. Than signing him again and having more turmoil with the two. If it goes on for another year and then we cut ties with Poles and get the right guy, whatever. But yeah, I certainly don't think Poles has earned another extension.
Doesn't really sound like alignment to me. It sounds like what we've been doing with the coaching and
Pat,
coaches.
that
and
sounds like
quarterbacks
exactly
for
what we've been
years.
doing.
Yeah, but like saying just to...
So like having Ben Johnson really be aligned with maybe being involved with the hiring of the GM.
Yeah, instead of just signing Poles again because he got us Ben Johnson, like he signed the most obvious head coaching candidate. We still have had a terrible season, or like I think instead of signing him for another 5 years after he's proven to have a lot of flaws with how he's constructed the roster, versus keeping him just for another year, cutting him, and then having Johnson maybe involved in picking the GM, I think would lead to more alignment than re-signing a lackluster GM and Poles.
Hey, I agree. Poles has not earned another contract. I just think that there could be some credence to maybe there was some deal made, which gave Ben Johnson confidence to come to the team so quickly.
I could see that.
But I agree. Poles has not proven a whole lot other than the trade with the Panthers to get us Caleb and now signing Ben Johnson.
And signing DeAndre Swift.
Oh, yeah. And drafting
Velus
who's
Jones.
the guy from Tennessee?
The ferret man.
Yeah, the ferret king.
John, are you going to hop in there?
No, to Mike's point, we were so excited about the roster construction going into this season, and it was a total disaster. To Warren's point, a season is a really long time. Every week is its own season. So much can happen. As much as this season turned into a disaster, he could make some moves this offseason that turn next season into something exciting, and we love him, and we're happy to have him re-signed. Pat, I think your point makes sense too. It's like one more season. If he sucks, we can cut bait, and Johnson and Caleb and the people that we like can have something to say about it.
Well, do you guys have any more points that you want to get in about Ben Johnson?
Well, so my, I guess, closing point for my thoughts on Ben Johnson is obviously there's going to be risk. There's going to be risk bringing in any coach, right? The Commanders, they took a risk hiring back Dan Quinn. He obviously had flaws in Atlanta, which is why he got fired. If we had wanted to hire Cliff Kingsbury, it's like, oh, he was a head coach before, didn't do well. Now we're going to bring him back. Hopefully he's learned. Hiring a brand new coach who's been great on one side of the ball, there's obviously the risk that he's not going to be able to handle the whole team and, be able to balance all those plates. There's always going to be a risk, whoever you are hiring. But I think the Bears deciding to go with the big prospect out there right now in Ben Johnson, as opposed to settling for Mike McCarthy or Drew Pretzel, I think that is a signal that we are trying to make a change with the team. We're trying to turn things around. We're trying to make that big splash and not settle for the low ceiling, high floor. And we're willing to go for that really high ceiling, maybe really low floor. He might stink, but there's a chance that he could be really incredible where these other guys wouldn't be.
I think this is the first splashy name that we have hired as coach since like Dave Wanstead. I think Dave Wanstead was like a splashy name coordinator position. I mean, he was a disaster as a coach, but that was over 35 years ago, something like that. So it's a good sign. I also want to take this opportunity to briefly call out my own meatballiness and say that when Flus got fired, when people were like, okay, who are you excited about in this coaching search? I said most excited about Thomas Brown as our as the potential coach, and we were going to use those 5 games as a little interview for him to see how he could prove himself, because we saw him clap his hands and say F yeah in the coordinator's booth when we scored a touchdown. That literally how low the bar was for excitement for coaches. And now those boys over in Hallis Hall have gone and surprised all of us. So I don't know, maybe we won't have to be so meatbally for much longer.
Oh, John, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't get too far ahead of ourselves.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
There's always hope for the meatball highness.
Well, if no one else has anything to add, all we've been talking about right now is head coaches. So clearly we know a lot about head coaches, but I was wondering, have you guys ever heard of the head coach quiz?
What?
Yeah. No, you haven't heard about it? Well, you're about to find out. Today we have an 8 AD question head coaching quiz that we're going to get into right now. So this is kind of a blurter, so you can blurt it out. 8 questions, 3 contestants here. I'm really excited. So we're going to get into question 1. Anybody have questions on the rules right now?
I heard there were 80 questions. So is that how many there are, or just 8?
8. Just 8. Just 8.
Question. I thought you meant this was an 8D quiz, similar to 3D, but 45D, 68, 70, 8D.
I'm going to send some smells through the Zoom, yeah. Question 1. Since 1982, the Chicago Bears have had 9 head coaches. Every coach except 3 have had an M at least in their first or last name. Name 2 of the 3 who have not.
Lovie
Dick
Smith, John
Duran,
Fox.
Who have not?
Lovie Smith definitely has an M.
Does not have an M?
Dick Duran,
Wanstead.
Dave Wanstead, and
Goes to John. I said name
no,
2
Mike
of them.
said Dave Wanstead. I said Dick Duran, and then
Dick Duran, John Fox.
All right. No, I'm going to give it to John. What? Question was name 2 of them. So not as a team, but as an individual. All right. So that is 1 point to the J-Man.
I said Lovie Smith so confident. That
I know,
M
you-
right there, that last name right in there.
I just snuck it in there. The M.
Question 2. This penis-named head coach won the AP Coach of the Year in 2001.
Mike Ditka.
2001.
penis named head coach.
Dick Duran.
Yep. Goes to Mike.
Cannot believe he won Coach of the Year.
That's
Yes.
insane.
For bonus points, what was the Bears' record that year?
13 and 3.
Yes. Bonus point to
Oh
John.
my God, John is running away with
Oh
this
my
thing.
God, I cannot believe he won Coach of the Year. That's crazy.
we lost in the first round of the playoffs to
Jim
the
Kramer,
Eagles.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, that was
John,
Jim
I'm not going to
Miller.
give you a bonus point for that, but man, if I could, I
Whatever.
would. The rules don't let me, though.
Thank you. Whatever.
Okay. Let's move on to question 3. Who is the last Bears head coach who famously did not have a beard or facial hair?
Mark Trestman?
Trustman.
Oh,
that was
definitely me. 100% me. 100% me. That's not even close.
Wow, my answer must have been going through the tubes. I
To
thought
make
it'd
it
be-
interesting, I'm going to give it to Pat. I'm going to give it to Pat.
Hell
Yeah, John Fox did have facial hair. There's a lot of photos of him with a beard. so I'm gonna give it to him.
Flus didn't have a beard when his first season.
That is true, but Trustman throughout the entirety of his career, I feel like did not have a lot of facial hair. Okay, this is question 4. George Halas holds the record for most regular season losses as a head coach. Per Wikipedia, he has 148. Who has the second most regular season losses for the Chicago Bears?
Matt Eberflus.
No.
Mike Ditka.
No.
Lovie Smith.
Yes.
I was trying just need to think of a coach who'd been here the longest.
Lovie Smith has 63. Mike Ditka has 62. Interesting.
How many years did Ditka coach? 10?
I
guess
believe so,
longer.
yeah. I think it was 1982. Yeah.
When was Lovey here? 10 years? Was Lovey here for 10 years?
I think so.
Oh, wait
Yeah.
back up here. God.
Yeah. Point out the scores again. John has 3 points. Pat has 1 point. Mike has 1 point. All right.
Oh, that was a full extra point John got there. Okay. All right.
You know,
All
we
right,
could.
whatever.
That's interesting. Okay.
No, whatever.
Since 1968. Now, this question is worth 2 points if you guys can get it.
Wow.
Or 0 points if no one can get it. Since 1968, the Bears have only tied 1 time. Who is the head coach for that tie?
1968
Mike
or since
Ditka.
1968?
Since 1968.
John Fox.
Lovey Smith.
No.
Mark Trestman.
Nick Duran.
Matt Nick.
We have not
Nagy.
mentioned his name.
Maggie.
We have not mentioned his name yet.
Matty Eberflus.
Big Washington.
A clue. This was in 1972.
George Ellis.
I don't know that guy's name.
McCaskey.
Lefty Grover.
No.
Mike, not going to give it to
Slippery
you. Actually, you're
Rick.
going to lose a point. You guys better stop before I'm going to start deducting points. Correct answer was Abe Gibran.
God
That's
dang
my
it,
next
Abe
guess.
Gibran. He's definitely a coach I've
That's
heard
not a
of.
person.
God
That's not
darn
a
it.
person.
He looked like the largest head coach that I've ever seen. He was a round person. Moving on to question 6. Mike Ditka was very well known for wearing this iconic
Sweater.
sunglass.
Blue
The
blockers.
aviator sunglasses.
Blue blockers. Blue blockers.
The aviator sunglasses, right? Not unlike this Hollywood actor who played
Cruise.
Maverick in Top
Tom
Gun,
Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
I mean, I said
who
Tom Cruise before
practices what religion?
Scientology.
John.
I was the first to answer all of the pretend answers too.
Wow, John is running away with this. Well, there's not really a way for you guys to tie, at least right now. But we'll
Unless-
see. We'll see how the rules kind of shape out. Okay. Question 7. Mike Ditka made the striped sweater famous in Chicago, not unlike this ghoulish monster who terrorized a young Johnny Depp.
Freddy Krueger.
Sure.
Patricio.
Fredrickson Krugerson.
All right. Current scores: John 4 points, Pat 2 points, Mike 1 point. So, Mike, I'm gonna ask you, how many points do you want this last question to be worth?
We want to make it interesting. 3 points. 2 points. How about we do 2 points? We'll fight. I want to fight for second place. I don't want to say.
So you have all the options in the world, and you still want to choose to at most get second
I mean,
place.
sure, I get 10 points.
There,
I
that's
just
what I
don't-
like to hear.
I don't want to be unfair to the other contenders, but
All right. If you get this answer right, you win the game. For half points, you'll do it for 2 to give you 2 points. All right. Mike Ditka famously had a chevron mustache, which is a mustache that is pointed slightly down towards the corners of your mouth, a little bit of a back underside V. In the 2006 Pixar movie Cars, what was the name of the car with a chevron mustache?
Larry the Cable Guy. Maynard.
we can name the car name.
Yes.
Lightning McQueen.
So
It's
it's,
not
like
Lightning,
Hicks.
Lightning's
the
like
truck.
Mentor, right?
Pat, that was your name?
I don't know what it is. You know what it is.
David Ralph Peter. Stephen.
Chick
Alright.
Hicks.
Did you look it up, Pat?
I
What
mean,
is it?
I didn't look it up. I saw Connor doing the quiz before the episode started. But do you have another
This throws
question?
into question the validity of the entire quiz.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, nobody got it. Nobody got
Patrick has been eliminated from this quiz for cheating.
Between
Dirtbag
Mike and
Pat.
John.
it. Are you kidding me? I get
Between
eliminated.
Mike and John.
I admitted to
What
cheating
was
right
the
away.
color of Chick Hicks?
Red.
What'd you
Yellow. Blue.
I said blue, green.
No. Yeah, green.
Yes, I know it. That was
So
for 100
Mike has
points,
earned 2
right?
points. That puts him at 3 points. John with 4. Pat with -2 now.
What
and then
the
Mike
hell?
with
I admitted
3.
it. No one was
Yeah.
getting the answer. Oh my
Well, and
God.
you cheated, Pat. I'm sorry. Well, so John, looks like you,
Zero
as long as
tolerance
you want
policy,
to,
Pat.
What's
if you
the-
choose to hold on to your points, your 4 points, you will win this game. So do you choose to hold on to them?
Yeah. Do you need my mailing address to send the winning the money or the check or whatever?
That it's actually not the prize for this contest. No.
What is the prize?
The offensive coordinator position for Chicago Bears. So actually,
Well, that's
pretty-
great. That's
yeah.
super exciting.
George McCaskey is a friend of the pod, so we got him on the line for this.
Yeah. Still considering dropping those digis on the podcast, huh?
Yeah. Well, if he had hired Mike Kafka, we would have dropped his number. We would have.
If Drew Peretzel was our head coach, yeah, that phone number would be all over the pod.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the quiz. There was kind of some interesting shenanigans that went on there. If no one else has anything to say, that is going to do it for this episode of the Chicagolandians. So I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing us talk about the Ben Johnson hiring. As always, we want to say thank you to Mike and John for coming on to our little podcast that we have here. It was a ton of fun, guys. Thank you again
Always.
for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
We look back at this podcast recording in 15 years after the Bears have won probably 12 Super Bowls and say, remember when we recorded that? The day the
Yeah.
Bears changed
Oh, yeah.
everything.
Yeah. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review. An extra incentive. If you leave us a review, you might be featured on the review section of this pod. We don't know. There's a lot of reviews running in right now, so it might take a bit to get to them, but it'd always be featured. If you liked this, please make sure to share with a friend. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'm sure you could think of somebody else who would enjoy this podcast. You can follow us on social medias everywhere at Chicagolandians, including TikTok. And as always, you can reach us as well at the Chicagolandians email if you're interested in business inquiries. But if no one else has anything to say, I'm going to say with full confidence and full excitement, bear down.
Bear down.
Bear down, baby.
Bear down.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Chicagolandians. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you want more Chicagolandians content, you can find us everywhere at Chicagolandians.